Good afternoon. Oh, come on now. We've all had lunch. We had fun at Ignites, right? Lunch was great. All right, I give up. Just time to go home. But not until we have a chance to talk about communication in an open company. So what does that mean? One of the hardest things about giving a talk or anything like that is coming up with a title. I think I spent more time on the title than I did on actually giving talks or on actually building my slide deck. So so let's get into a user story here. Let's kind of put this into terms that we can all understand. So quick poll of the room. I know everyone hates these things, but you have to because I'm holding the mic and that's how this works, right? So how many project managers do we have? Someone involved in management or planning? Okay, a few of you. Developers? How about my brothers in arms, my systems administrators? There's 3 of us. Everybody else is in the hall on their MiFis trying to fix their servers back home, right? Okay, so who am I missing? Security? Okay. All right. So why are we here? Everything's working. The website's not down. There aren't any fires. What's going on? So let's say we work for Average Corp. Someone already took Evil Corp, so I'll take Average Corp. We deploy 1 or 2 times a year. It's usually a big ordeal. Usually takes a weekend. You just basically have to tell your family, "Hi, I love you. I'm not going to see you all weekend. We're going to be pulling all-nighters with Powerade and pizza." But we tried that cloud thing once, kind of. I don't really get what it means. But one of our teams kind of does their own thing, and the manager pays for that cloud thing out of his credit card. We have monitoring, yeah, but we don't look at them. We get alerts. Most of us have email filters set up on our inbox, so it just all gets sent to some folder, and no one ever looks at it, right? With a system like that, what could possibly go wrong? I heard a few snickers in the room because we've all been there. So, sure enough, release time comes around, the upgrade fails, the backup database was corrupt, and we had to order in hard drives from our offsite storage. Releases like this, a culture like this is what we usually call an RGE, a resume generating event. So we've all been there. We've all pulled those all-nighters. We've all had to come up with some miraculous solution at the last minute. There's a different way, and that's what we're going to talk about, and that's where communication comes in. So who am I, and why am I telling you about this? My name's Eric. You might know me as the IT guy. I've got a podcast that's up and coming called The Pseudo Show. I've worked with the GNOME Foundation. I've worked with Jupiter Broadcasting and the Ask Noah Show, doing some open source journalism. But today I've got my Gitlab hat or shirt on, as it were. And so we're going to look at Gitlab a little bit. For those of you that don't know, Gitlab is a single application for your entire DevOps lifecycle. So from issue planning to source code management to CI/CD pipelines, we do security scanning. Everybody loves dashboards, right? So we've got dashboards that you can track your issues. You can track the health of your Kubernetes cluster. And we also do monitoring, and we're getting into the defend stage. So for those of you that don't know us, we've got a booth across the hall. Come by and see us. Register to win a 3D printer. That's what we're all here for, right? The swag and the giveaways. So fun fact, I've gotten this question a few times. This is actually not a fox. This is what we call a tanuki. What in the world is a tanuki? It's a Japanese raccoon dog. So just to set the record straight, for everyone here and everyone online, It's not a fox, it's a tanuki. So anyway, in all seriousness, you had an incident, things went bad. The engineering team is eyeballs deep in error logs and trying to deploy changes last minute. So what do? How do you handle that? There's so many ways that could go wrong, technically, publicly, and most of us are mostly focused on the technical side. But I would grant you that it's not so much a technical solution. It's a culture thing. If we can change the culture of how our businesses do work, we can change how people perceive us. So let's take a look at an example. So one problem you might have is you might go looking for someone to blame, and we've seen that with a fairly reputable credit monitoring company who shall remain nameless, but they took it upon themselves to blame an open source project. An open source project in which accepts bug reports, accepts pull requests to fix particular bugs. But instead of casting blame, let's look at another case of what we don't want to do. We don't want to bury it. If we have an incident, if something goes wrong, if data gets leaked, we don't want to bury that. We don't want to bury that incident because it can come back to haunt us. For an example, in 2014 or so, depending on who you ask, Yahoo actually had its entire user database compromised. Most people didn't know about that. I didn't really know about that until I started doing some research for this talk. Their entire user database was compromised. Billions of accounts, billions of passwords out there in the wild for people to see. It wasn't reported until 2017 when Verizon went to purchase. Yahoo was fined $35 million for the incident, and no one even knew it really happened until years later. And fun fact, Verizon did end up buying Yahoo. They tried to change the name, change the branding, but in the end, it still didn't end up well for that situation. So, just communicating that there's been a breach doesn't exactly fix your issue either. If the only time your Twitter account gets lit up is when you have a breach, if you have the same breach over and over, if you just refuse to acknowledge the severity of the situation, like, it's no big deal, you know, it's just your personally identifiable information. It's nothing, right? What you're going to do is you're going to lose customers. People are going to lose faith in your organization. So how do we protect that? How do we keep that? How do we prevent repeating what happened to Yahoo? Well, there's a whole lot of ways that can go wrong. There's a few ways that can go right. I want to talk about the Gitlab way. I'll borrow from DevOps. So at Gitlab, as a case study at Gitlab, we communicate everything. Everything is public. Everything, you can go out to gitlab.com and look at the public repos that actually comprise of gitlab.com. You can go to about.gitlab.com and you can see our handbook. You can see our company policies. You can see our roadmap, and we're going to dive into that just a little bit here. In fact, we believe in this policy so much at GitLab that it's one of our core values. GitLab's values are credit, collaboration, results, efficiency, diversity, iteration, and transparency. It's in our values. We live it every single day. So transparency is key. If people know what's going on, they're more likely to see you as a human being. Technology is complex. It's ever-changing, and the pace is just becoming more and more rapid every single day. We all know this. We're all having to do more with less. So transparency at your core will definitely change how people perceive you. In fact, it becomes second nature. In fact, I had a few conversations with people that I've worked with over the years, and I went to them and said, I don't know exactly what to say. I know that there's a message here, but when you live it every day, I don't want to say you take it for granted, but if you live it every single day, it becomes easy. So every day, well, 4 out of 5 days a week, we have a company call. So hundreds of people from all over the world get together on a Zoom conference call, and we talk it through an agenda. We welcome new people. We celebrate promotions. We talk about upcoming issues. We talk about what's new on the roadmap. Every day, for 30 minutes before the company call, we have a different department in the company each day spend 30 minutes presenting on what they're working on. Because Gitlab is 100% remote. We're a remote company, and we're global. So on our team, we've got people in Kansas City, we've got folks in Chicago, we've got folks in Las Vegas and Denver, and that's just one team, and we're fairly localized. But GitLab even has people that travel the country or travel the world. From week to week, you never know where they're going to pop up. In fact, I know one gentleman who frequently will sit out on his back porch overlooking the ocean and join Zoom calls and rub it in your face that you're wherever you are instead of sitting on the beach. And there's nothing like getting that Slack message of someone with their feet up on a sandy beach with their drink at their feet. Yeah, it's just like, and this is how people work. This is a daily thing at GitLab. So it becomes so easy. It becomes second nature. You figure out how to work into your life instead of trying to figure out how to fit life into your work. So Eric, what's that got to do with communication? It's a culture. It's a way of thinking. So when I said everything at GitLab is public, I mean everything at GitLab is public. So the best way to prove that is to kind of put our money where our mouth is. So a few years ago, GitLab.com is our software as a service. It's our SaaS platform. It's built on Google Cloud. I think at the time it was in Azure, but a couple of years ago, there was a database outage that lasted over 6.5 hours. It was a cascade of failures from backups being on spinning disks, so it took longer, to a corruption within the database, so that the master and the slaves weren't communicating correctly, because most of our environments are capable of surviving one failure. But you add in a cascade of problems, that's when you see outages. And GitLab is just as vulnerable to that as anyone else. Another example, about a year or so ago, there was a situation where access tokens were being published in logs. It affected less than 0.5% of our users. But GitLab published that. We said, hey, this is going on. We emailed the particular projects that were affected. We fixed the issue, and we went on about our business. Now, why does that change everything? Let's dive into that database outage for a minute. 6.5 hours. That's most people's business day. So how did GitLab communicate during that situation? Like most things at GitLab, it ended up on YouTube. Because GitLab has two different channels. We've got our GitLab channel, and we have what's called GitLab Unfiltered. So you can actually go on and you can see product demos that we're sharing internally. You can actually go and watch people's team meetings. You can see our daily team stand-ups recorded and stored on YouTube. So you can go out and see all this. So in the middle of a 6.5-hour database outage, easy for me to say, there was a YouTube live stream. And at its peak had over 5,000 active viewers. So, yeah, GitLab was trending in the middle of an outage. And you could see what the engineers were working on. You could listen in on the conversations back and forth between management and between the DBAs on how to fix this, on why things were taking so long to restore. And when it was all said and done, GitLab followed up and made good on their promise to fix things and to be transparent. There was an 18-page blog post that was published outlining step by step, hour by hour, phase by phase of what went wrong, why things took longer than expected, what lessons were learned, what changes GitLab was going to make to prevent that kind of a problem in the future. It included a personal apology from the CEO of the company. Not many people are going to take the time to sit down and say, you know what, you as our customer deserve better. We'll do better. And our CEO, Sid, actually took it a step further. And not only did we say we're going to fix this, and this is how, but we also included links to the open issues. So you can actually go onto gitlab.com, look at our SaaS offering, and look at the project repo where all of our code was stored, and you could track the issues. You could see the conversations within those issues, within those merge requests, where our DBAs and our engineers were talking back and forth about, well, what if we use this type of storage instead of this for our backups? What if we ran cron jobs every hour instead of every 4 hours? You could see the discourse within our team, because GitLab believes in transparency all the way. Like I've been preaching, it can't be just during the bad times. It can't be just during an incident. It has to be cultural. It has to be routine. This is why I don't put much content in my slides, because I've talked about a lot of this. So, if that's the only time that GitLab's Twitter was active, if that was the only thing on our YouTube channels, is any time that our systems are down, you're not going to have a lot of faith in that kind of a company. But thankfully, that's not all we put out on our blog. This is not all we talk about on Twitter. In fact, every month on the 22nd of the month, for 80 plus months consecutively, I think this month was our 82nd consecutive month, we publish a new version of our software, and we put out a substantial set of release notes, what new features there are, and links. And to keep that tradition alive, we post links to the issues, to the milestones for those features. And you can also go out to about.gitlab.com, and you can see our entire company handbook. The entire handbook is public. We're open to contributions, because we're not perfect. We're iterating just like everyone else. But the only way to iterate on a process, the only way to iterate on an idea, is to try something, see if it works, take what doesn't, and change that to where it does work. And just keep iterating on it over and over and over again. As the company grows, as the culture shifts, as technology changes, keeping that handbook open and up to date is essential. I mean, think about it. GitLab has over 400 people, probably over 500 by now, all remote. The availability of information is key to our survival. If we were siloed, if we couldn't talk between teams, if we couldn't sit on each other's team meetings to see what everyone's working on, our company could not continue to exist. And even our roadmap is public. So you can go out to our website, you can look for upcoming releases, and you can see what we're working on for the month of May. May 22nd is coming up quick. But then you can look on to next month, and the next month, and the next year, and you can see phase by phase, because GitLab works over 10 different phases of the DevOps lifecycle. So monitoring, defend, plan. Each of these phases has a section on our upcoming releases page, and you can see exactly what they're working on. And GitLab doesn't wait until we have a perfect product. That's the beauty of being an open core company. Our source code is public. Our source code you can download, you can play with it, you can tweak it, you can send pull requests back to gitlab.com. In fact, most of the best ideas that we have aren't ours. They come from our customers. Some of the best bug fixes, some of the best changes to our documentation don't come from someone whose paycheck comes from GitLab. No, it's our open source community. We have over 2,000 contributors, people that just play with GitLab in their spare time, people that have a passion project, some kind of open source, some sort of open source widget or something else that they're really passionate about, and they try and use our application to manage and to source control and to build that passion project. So it's not always a GitLab employee that actually makes this change. So while GitLab may be 400 people strong, we have 2,400 people that are looking at this code, that are looking at these changes, that are publishing releases. We in our monthly release, we even have an MVP. So if you're one of the open source contributors, you can be nominated by one of the engineers to be an MVP for that month. I mean, it's you don't get a check or anything, but you get some bragging rights, right? And doesn't come up well on the screen, but you can create a feature branch, you can write code, you can make changes to the application, you can see how it builds, and then you can actually tag it as ready to merge back into production. And this isn't just for your own project. This is for Gitlab.com. This is for our actual application. This is for our code. I mean, how many people can take a piece of their work home with them and make changes to it and take it back to the office and go, hey, I found this cool thing. And so the result that we found at GitLab is that people love honesty. People love it when you're transparent, because GitLab, to our customers, to our users, to our open source community, GitLab is not just a logo. GitLab is not just some company out there that's trying to take their money and every month trying to take more money. GitLab isn't a company. GitLab is a culture. GitLab is a community, is part of the community. We are a player within the community. In fact, GitLab offers free Ultimate licenses to an open source project, and I believe educational organizations as well. So if you're a college, or if you're working on the Joplin note-taking app or something along those lines, you can host your content on GitLab.com, and you can get our highest tier application for free because you're part of the community, because we're part of the community, because everything is better with open source. I keep leaving my clicker behind, so. So, just as a fun tidbit, even this presentation is open source. It was built on open source software, and it's released open source. So I used Arch Linux, LibreOffice, Firefox, and then because I like eating my own dog food, I've actually got the slides for this talk available out on GitLab, and these slides and that URL will be available after the talk. So we talked a lot about transparency, and it's a culture thing. It's not just something you do when something breaks. It's something you should practice every single day. And like I said, GitLab isn't perfect at this. We're always open to new ideas. So if you have an idea, if you feel like there's something that GitLab isn't doing that we need to be doing, open up an issue on our board. Come across the hall to our booth. Have a conversation with us, because GitLab talks about community. GitLab values community, and this entire DevOps movement, this entire philosophy of faster iteration, is going to be better when we work at it as a community, as an industry, than if we each have our own little silos and we each have our own little sandboxes that we play in and say this is how things are, instead of how things could be. So, with that being said, I would love to take any of your questions, any of your comments. And if not, I want to go hang out at the booth and hand out some stickers. Thank you all very much for your time.